Welcome to this week's episode of the Focused Mindset Podcast. I am so glad to be right here with you today because we're entering into summer. And I had a really full month last month moving. I had to move rooms before we had to check out for the summer. Being a school counselor, we have to be flexible. We have to practice flexibility often. And I was told I was moving rooms better than moving schools, like many of my friends were. And so off I had to clean and organize and all of this kind of stuff for the last week. And to be honest, it's kind of nice just to be able to be here rather than that type of busyness, the busyness of doing something that just has got to get done. Not because you're passionate about it, really. That's where I was at. But now, entering into summer, we have a lot to talk about. I've been giving a lot of thought to the two components that we need to be able to experience hope. You know what they are? You remember? It's willpower and way power. And we're going to focus on willpower, which is agency. All right. Agency is basically the motivational aspect of hope. And it's also the social aspect of it because it's also known as like the cheerleader of your goal, the cheerleader that stands behind you and says, yeah, you got this. Keep on going. You are moving towards that finish line on whatever your goal is. Many aspirations that we have in our life can take a lot of our energy. And I've been doing also a lot of studying on brain research, and I found it so interesting to consider the fact that we have a limited amount of energy, that our brain, it whatever we're working on, especially if we're working on really big projects, it is on and it's working hard, and eventually you begin to feel drained. You begin to feel just your energy gone, and you just don't want to move forward. What is that? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not motivated anymore. It might even be that the day hasn't even come to a near close, and you have this mental fatigue that kicks in. And we know that we get exhausted. That's true. Do we also think about the fact that that is the way that our brain works? Our brain has a limited amount of mental energy that we can use each day, and we need to use it wisely because that is what happens with willpower. Sometimes willpower just isn't there, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how much we want what we're working towards or what we need to do. It just means that we've come to the point where our willpower is exhausted, and we need to be able to look in other places for it. One of the places that you can look is towards others. Have you realized that for some reason we can do a lot more and go a lot further when we're in community, when we have people around us that are also cheering us on? One way to be able to continue to have the agency and the willpower to continue to move forward is to make sure that we have a community of people around us that are cheering us on, keeping us accountable, want to know our progress, and aren't there to judge us or tell us, what the heck, why aren't you moving? But are there to say, I know that you're moving towards this goal. I know that you're going to get there. So seek out people that can do that, but also be considerate of the fact that it's sometimes you're just not going to have the energy. And you need to be kind to yourself and realize that we have a limited source of that. It's going to be limited each day. And sometimes it's time for us to take a walk outside and get some fresh air and do something different, or spend time with a hobby, or, like I said, call a friend to get energized. And sometimes we need to remember that the next day is when these things need to happen. It's very unfortunate that rather than giving ourselves that grace, many times we beat ourselves up and we say, that's it. I just can't do anything more today. And then feel bad about that somehow, or feel as though we're running short. Now, there is times we need to cram and we need to just get things done. That happened recently to me when I needed my book proposal completely finished. And it was true that I needed to dig deep. But to be honest, it wasn't that hard to do. I fell into exhaustion of just needing sleep, not running out of motivation to keep writing because honestly, I love writing. So that was the easy part. But when it came time for me to rest, I even had to be kind to my own self and be like, it's time. It's time to rest. Even when you're burning the midnight oil and you have a goal, that a deadline, if you will, eventually it's going to be time. Gosh, it was like 3 weeks before school was out. There's a student that I've been working with who really has oppositional nature, and his first tendency is to always have something to say and always be the one that's going to contradict what the teacher has and another way of looking at it. And arguments to the way that he looks at things are always in his mind, always right on the tip of his tongue. And he's been working on this a lot with his teacher throughout the year. And it takes effort. It takes that mental capability of remembering. It does not come natural to him. And as the year winded to an end, he started coming in after lunch grumpy. And he started just being a little bit more of a, I don't know, a little bit more of a jerk to the teacher. And I thought it was interesting that the teacher said, "Why are you coming in with an attitude? You don't need to be coming in from lunch with an attitude every single day." She goes, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "I'm tired." And she looked at that as maybe being too tired playing outside. And it was like, well, that's no excuse. And she found herself getting irritated and lacking, I guess, the ability to have compassion towards him because she, in her own brain and the way that her brain worked, looked at it like being tired is not an excuse for being a little turd. I'm trying to think of words for that. And so we had a conversation about this. She came to consult with me, and we had a conversation. But every time I have an opportunity to consult with a professional, sometimes they're coming to find out what I'm thinking. Sometimes I'm coming to them to find out what they're thinking. Every time I lead it towards a solution focused conversation by bringing up questions and bringing up ways for them to hopefully come up with their own insights. And in this situation, she was talking about this and kind of venting a little of like, how could he come every single day with this tiredness? He says he's tired. What is that? And she goes, "Do you think that's true?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You do?" And I said, "Absolutely." I'm all, you know, how much energy do you think that it takes him to behave all day? And she just stopped and she's all, "I never looked at it that way." And she goes, I think that him using the word tired, he's meaning that he's tired of trying. And I said, yeah, I've been there. I mean, we're almost to the end of the year, and sometimes I'm tired of trying as well, and I think that doesn't make it right what he's doing, but it takes all of his energy all day long to tame his tongue and choose not to say something when he wants to. And it is like learning a new language is for us. If we're constantly translating, we're going to get a lot more tired than if we can just listen into something and it's in our own language and it's just fine. Now, for a child whose tendency is to be oppositional and they're trying to train themselves not to because they know that they need to, that is that kind of cognitive thing that they're doing with their brain takes so much energy. And I think he really was tired. And just us acknowledging that maybe he actually is, I could see the teacher's compassion come over her and just a relaxation come over her. Because when we realize that everyone has a finite amount of willpower just to keep going, and then we give the other person that we're with some grace and understanding that where they're at and the things that wear their brain out is different than the things that wear our brain out. And it might not be an excuse that you're just quote unquote tired. Sometimes you have to think maybe they really are feeling the sensation of being tired and that feeling of overwhelm. And what happens when we're like that? We're not our best self, right? We're not quick to just be kind and smile sometimes, we're just like, forget it. Now, when I spoke recently at the Solution Focused World Conference, one of the questions that I got, because we were talking about choosing your attitude, and I am going to get that recording out to you. You can already find it on their website, but I'm going to get a recording that I took out to you very soon. But she said, I want to choose the most useful attitude. I want to choose a hope-centered attitude. But what do you do when it's the end of the day and you have a client coming in that's one of the toughest ones, and you just don't have it in you? You just don't want to choose that kind of attitude. Because she was saying that her attitude that she wanted to choose, I think, was joy, or I don't remember what it was, but she was like, yeah, I just don't have it. And my thought is, I just had compassion on her in that moment. And she joked and said, maybe I shouldn't put my hard clients near the end of the day, which is also kind of true. Planning out when you're going to do the things that take the most energy, and that it's going to be the hardest to choose a great attitude. You should choose that when you're going to be your best, not putting it off as we do, like put off, oh, I'll just see them before I go home. And then you're just not in the right frame of mind to be your best, right? So that was a funny moment of insight that she had as we were talking. But in that same thread, I was like, that is why, as we go out throughout our day, when we want to choose a hopeful attitude, the thing that gives us hope is going to be different all the time. You might be in a mindset of being hopeful for 2 hours from then, when you're going to be at home, and even the thought of you 2 hours from now being at home can be like, you know what? I can get through this moment right now. 2 hours, I'm going to be at home, rather than thinking, how can I be hopeful about this client right now? I just can't. It's the end of the day, right? So giving us the grace of saying, yep, it's the end of the day. I'm running out of energy. I can't just choose a joyful attitude right now, but I can switch it a little bit in my mind and say, if I begin to focus on the hope of this or that, or I even suggested, be honest with yourself. The attitude that I'm having right now is that my willpower is a little bit depleted, and I am just ready for the day to end. And the acknowledgement of that, rather than forcing something that's just not there, the freedom of that allows you then to have the actual energy to get through the day, right? I think that one student that comes to see me, when he takes a break and it feels like he's just, oh gosh, what do you even want to talk to me about? You're just taking a break for what reason? But sometimes it's just for him to say, I have a lot. It's just a lot going on in my brain. And he just needs to voice it and be honest about it. And then he says, yeah, I know what I need to do. And he's back in the rings, baby. And he's doing his best in the class. At least we hope he is. Now, I believe that there are times when we have seasons of rest and times where we have seasons of work. But no matter what season that you're in, have grace on yourself. That willpower is finite. It's not something that's always going to be there. At the end of the day, when you're tired, no, it's going to be there in the morning. It's going to be there when you wake up, because you're renewed and your mind is renewed, and we're renewed through a fresh vision for the new day as the sun dawns. And you can give yourself that moment of peace, that moment of clarity, to say, I'm choosing an attitude that matches where I'm at, that's authentic to who I am, that's helpful for this moment. And if this moment is a moment that's winding down, then own that moment. And you might have one of the best times ever, rather than feeling like, I really just needed to do more. Maybe not. Maybe you needed to do exactly what you did. I had a lunch recently with somebody that I really wanted to glean a lot of knowledge from. It's somebody who's really one of the leaders in the school counseling realm. And the couple of days before, it's like I knew that I needed to clear my mind. I needed to not be taking in knowledge, but rather than that, just having clarity and peace and mindfulness to really tap into my truest self. And I hope that if you're a school counselor like me and you're not year round and you're able to have a little bit of a break, or whenever you're able to have a break, especially if you have something big coming up, that rather than being anxiously fighting against fighting to make sure you have the willpower to keep going, find those moments of mindful peace that you can get in touch with the person that you truly are and truly want to be. And that, more than anything, is going to allow yourself to have the willpower to go on. That, and what we talked about at the beginning, having community around you, having a community of people, man, that's very, very important. I went to go work out with my with the group that I work out with in the morning, and man, I didn't want to wake up as early as that was when I had this important lunch with this individual a little later, but I did. And there was a reason why I needed to persevere, not only because I needed to be true to my moment of choice and I had chosen to work out, but also because my community was there, people that can lift me up. And sure enough, after they worked out, my friend Leslie just spoke life into me and was like, you're going to do amazing, and all these, cheerleading type things, the cheerleading part that we really need, not only to access within us, but to have to hear from somebody else. And I just couldn't help but smile and like, man, you're just in those states where you're like, I love you guys. I'm so glad that I was here and able to chat with you. It is important that we choose to not stay secluded, but reach out to the people that bring us joy and that are going to allow us then to be able to reflect, to say, okay, what is the best version of me that I want to project right now? I've now been more filled up, more centered, whatever it might be. I wrote in my Instagram on those, those little bubbles that they have you do. I wrote hope-centered and solution-focused. I feel as though hope-centered is something that many people don't really consider. Hope is not even something that is constantly in the future. Like, I hope that something will happen. It's something we can ground ourselves in. It's something we can be centered in. It's something that we can acknowledge as something that we know exists. And we know it exists in the person that we're working with, and we know it exists within our the goals and dreams that have been given specifically to us, and we own it in this moment. Yes, it is the knowledge that a greater future is possible, and that you could take steps to get there, but all of those internal words are happening in this moment, not in the future. Hope is a very present and something that happens authentically within you. Now, remembering that in order to reach a desired outcome, a desired plan that we've been making, we need the willpower and the pathways and the way power, which is the pathways. I'm looking at my wonderful Hope Rising book that has my notes in it. We need those two to be like a path going back and forth and wiring together. It's like they're both wiring and moving at the same time, like us moving on a bike. And as we go, we need both feet to be pedaling, right? One is the willpower, one is the way power, one is the agency, the other is the pathways. The pathways are us saying, what are the next steps I can do? What are the actions that I can take? Do I see a pathway here? Do I see a pathway there? I want to be able to have my eyes open to all of the pathways that are possible for me in my life right now. The willpower is that desire within us that also is charged up with people around us. And those two things are chugging together. And when those two are functioning and there's nothing stopping one of those, we can't help but feel hope. And that is what the science of hope has taught us. So that's just that's just a very simple explanation of those two concepts within our brain, within our mind, within our being. And I hope that this helps you choose to be more solution focused in your work. As educators, we have a very unique work. We're working on a different level than most companies are, because we have the company that's moving, but the company has people that they are also motivating and teaching and helping nurture. And so it's an extra layer. I find when I'm talking to a group of leaders that don't work with clients or students, and it's not a school district, they might be moving products or creating things. So really all you have to deal with is the bosses and the employees, right? And maybe there's people in the field and people in the office, all of that, but that they are working with a thing, not a person. What's different with us as educators is that we have our bosses, our principals, our district office, and then we have the teachers, the other support staff, and then we have. But what we're serving and what we're preparing to make a difference in or impact are other humans, all of the students. And that is such a different type of layer. And those students have parents. And so you have all of these different levels of social interactions that happen within a school. And that's why I love speaking to people that work within the education system and leadership and that kind of thing, because it is such a different type of situation that people sometimes don't realize. You can't just pick up any old leadership book and it applies. There's a lot more layers. And the same applies for those that have clients that they're working with as far as in the mental health field. So, and actually my friend that's a nurse was also telling me it's also very true for nursing. You have that extra layer of that you're actually affecting other people. It's not just about the entity of work. So wherever we are, we remember that yes, willpower is important. And yes, we need to access the community around us. And we need to have a big, strong amount of grace on the others that we're working with, because they are going through that exact same thing. Okay, so I am, now that I'm off work, going to get that recording together for you of the conference that I was in and a wonderful interview that I had with a TEDx speaker a while back. I'm going to finally get that to you. You can look forward to that and much, much more in our solution-focused, hope-centered podcast, The Focused Mindset. So until next time, live solution-focused.